the BBC has called for Huw Edwards to return his salary from the time he was arrested in November last year, saying the presenter undermined trust in the BBC and brought us into disrepute. The married father of 5, 62, admitted to having 41 indecent pictures of children, and some of which were Category A, which are the worst type of images of child abuse. A statement issued by the BBC board read, "There is nothing more important than the public's trust in the BBC. The BBC board is the custodian of that trust." The board has met a number of times over the last week to review information provided by the executive relating to Huw Edwards. The board's focus has been principally around two issues. Firstly, what was known in the lead-up to Mr. Edwards being charged and pleading guilty last Wednesday to making indecent images of children, and, secondly, the specifics of the BBC's handling of the complaints and the BBC's own investigations into Mr. Edwards, prior to his resignation on April 22, 2024. It continued to say the corporation has reviewed the details provided with regard to both series of events. On these, the board supports the decisions taken by the Director General and his team during this period, the statement went on. These decisions were based on taking into account a range of factors including, the BBC's legal and contractual obligations, the knowledge the BBC had at the time, duty of care concerns, and, due regard for the accountability that the BBC has for public money. The executive has agreed to look at lessons from this period, including the BBC's approach to the rules surrounding payments when employees are suspended. Today, the board has authorized the executive to seek the return of salary paid to Mr. Edwards from the time he was arrested in November last year. Mr. Edwards pleaded guilty to an appalling crime. Had he been upfront when asked by the BBC about his arrest, we would never have continued to pay him public money. He has clearly undermined trust in the BBC and brought us into disrepute. Whilst the nature of the charges against Mr. Edwards is related to his own personal life, the board believes these events have also put a spotlight on the question of power imbalances in the workplace. We remain concerned about the potential for inappropriate workplace behavior, particularly in creative and editorial environments. Whilst challenges related to power imbalances in the workplace are a challenge for multiple employers, the BBC must hold itself to the highest standards. Concluding, the lengthy statement read, "The BBC has clearly articulated values and a strong code of conduct, and there has been much progress in recent years. That said, the board will commission an independent review that will make recommendations on practical steps that could strengthen a workplace culture in line with BBC values. The review will include work already being undertaken within the BBC, as well as working with the rest of the industry as appropriate. We will set out terms of reference and leadership of this review in early September. The review will report to the board within months, and will be published." The statement comes a week after the Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy claimed Edwards should pay back his eye-watering salary after pleading guilty to indecent images of children. Nandy asked the corporation to investigate whether or not it can recoup an estimated £200,000, which the former BBC News presenter earned in the period from his arrest in November last year until handing in his resignation, in April. She has since released a follow-up statement, reading, "Public trust in the BBC is essential, and so I welcome the BBC's decision to launch an independent review into the culture within the organisation following the Huw Edwards case and his abhorrent actions. The BBC is a hugely valued and important player in the public service broadcasting landscape that reaches millions every day, and it is vital that the public has complete trust and faith in the organisation and in how it is run. BBC staff must be able to feel safe in the workplace and be confident that if non-editorial complaints are raised they will be acted upon and dealt with fairly and decisively. The BBC is operationally and editorially independent of the government, however I have spoken to the BBC chair in the past week to convey these points in the interests of the public. Fury had also started to grow around the decision to allow the disgraced news anchor to keep a number of his major presenting awards. The Welshman received top accolades for several moments throughout his career, including coverage of royal events such as the Queen's funeral. Among his awards were a BAFTA, the Royal Television Society, RTS, and the Television and Radio Industries Club, TRIC. However, some of the organizations have now decided against rescinding his awards, much to the annoyance of online users. Follow Mirror Celebs on TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube and Threads.